Colin, topic 3 of the day is something that you brought up to me yesterday. The PSN and the quality of games on it. What do you have to say about that?
I'm wondering if we're like we're having a shift on PlayStation Network specifically. I can't speak to Xbox Live authoritatively enough to know if it's happening there too. My suspicion is that it is. Where I'm feeling like there's no quality control of any objective measure on these consoles. This came up to me because I can't remember the name of the game. I wish I did because it's important. I guess it's somewhat important to the argument. But a few weeks ago, a game was released on PSN that was like totally fucking like full of stolen assets and art and music apparently. And like it was like everyone's like, how the fuck did this happen? Like we expect to see this. This happens every day on iOS and Android. They're like totally unmitigated free markets where they'll eventually get taken down. But like there's no process. Same thing with Steam. And when I saw this, I was like, and a lot of people were like, how did this happen on PlayStation Network? How, like, where is the quality control? Did no one like look at this? Does no one like try to figure out like, yeah, this game might not be for me, but we can understand how this might be for someone. There's some sort of objective quality, level of quality to this particular game that may like that under no circumstances will a vast majority of the audience just hate. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that like they're flooding the market in a very Steam-esque or iOS way lately in the last couple of years since PS4 really launched, where I'm like, this is in the wrong direction. This is going to start to we were talking about the Vita thing, the Vita argument of discovery and of like having a place where you can make some money. Like they're actually injuring themselves. And I'm curious if you guys have noticed this on the platforms that you play and if you think it's problematic too, because I find it to be extremely troubling that on PSN yesterday, for instance, or today, but on PS I Love You when we recorded it, or 2 days ago when we recorded it, that we read something like 14 new games or something.
I thought it was more than that.
I was like, how is that possible? There should maybe be this many games a month, maybe, on your platform.
I mean,
I understand consumer choice and all that kind of stuff, but I'm like, you're like, what are some of these games? Like, I can't imagine some of these games on a platform with 45 million users. I bet you some of these games sell literally 5,000 copies.
Sure.
It's like, what is the point of even releasing a game that no one cares about, that you don't promote? There's no PlayStation blog post. You stealth release it, and then you bury shit.
I think you give too much credit, and I think you've done it for a long time, to what goes on over there behind closed doors about a game getting on the PSN. I don't think there's like a quality control board sitting there playing it. I'm sure it gets rated by the ESRB or whatever. It gets certified or whatever that it runs, and they just don't care. They put it up. And this is, I think, key to the argument you had with Andrea, and not like an argument, but the argument Andrea and you were making on separate sides, the mobile game and the PlayStation/console game on the PlayStation 4 Slims React. And the fact that I think Andrea was arguing, right, that the things you were talking about with all these mobile developers falling and failing and all these shit games happening, she was arguing that happens already. And I think it's just a per capita thing. You know what I mean? Where I think, honestly, there's so many more. It's so easy to make an iOS or a mobile game. $99 gets you the program you need to make a game and put it out. A good example of this is that, I was like, did Guacamelee come to iOS? Put Guacamelee in, and it auto-filled. I'm like, oh, it did. And then there was like 3 apps there that were not Guacamelee, but are using that name and like talking about Guacamelee. And I'm like, what are these fucking clones even doing? It's not that bad yet, right? But it's because there is that barrier to entry of getting a dev kit and getting going and getting working on PlayStation. But if you were to somehow try to get the numbers, do a bunch of division, I'd feel it's closer in terms of per capita basis of like, there's a lot of shit put out. And there is, and I don't know if you should stop it or how you stop it. I think if anything, the onus on celebrating and championing games falls to the PlayStation blog or sites or us or personalities that are going to be like the Vita Lounge, the guys who make the actual Vita magazine, right? The fact that they're going to sit there and celebrate and champion and talk to developers who are making quality products and do it. And so if you're a Vita fan, you're going to read that magazine. Because, to the Vita argument, I forget what it was. It might have been Dual Shockers, but in the last 2 or 3 months, there was an article up about like, hey, is anyone aware of how fucking broken it is to find a PlayStation Vita game? Where they're like, games aren't not mentioned on the blog post, but if you go to the store, they're in new releases, but if you go to the web portal, they're not, and that might be vice versa. But it's one of those things where you can't physically find things as a person, like typing and knowing exactly what you're looking for. You can't always find the game you want. And that is the fact that it's inundated. There's so much shit coming out, and it is one giant bucket of DLC add-on game, this thing.
And that's always been my issue. So are you talking about, like, is there too much crap on PSN? I think that it's even less of a problem of crap games and more of just crap content. And the fact that the crap content is with all of the...
Are you about to insult The dynamic theme of corn,
exactly.
The corn of the corn on the cob rotating.
But that's the problem is it's just like every single time I've ever been on PSN, whether it's PS3, PS4, Vita, whatever, it's finding stuff has always been an issue because even if I'm looking exactly search term Final Fantasy X, like why am I getting so many dynamic themes and
avatars
and like DLC packs and stuff and like things that are just like kind of relevant? And it's just when you're searching through games, it's like they make it too challenging to just look at games.
Yeah.
You know, I know that all you need to do is go to the little ticker and click it, but it's like that option should be the default. Like finding the themes and packs, you should struggle to find those.
You
things.
figure, I mean, like the best worst example of this is like, oh man, it's the first of the month. There's new PlayStation Plus games, and you would go into the store, go to PlayStation Plus, click PlayStation Plus, and it's like, do you want to buy 1 month, 6 months? I'm like, I want the fucking games. Where do I go to find these fucking things on the store?
And that's the thing is, I think that the PSN does a good job to an extent of telling you what they want to tell you. Like when you log into the store, like the first opening page, it gives you a lot of information and that I think is actually really helpful. Like it lets you know what sales are going on. It lets you know what PS Plus games are there and all that stuff, what's new and what like retail game, like, you know, bigger games are the hotness right now.
Pre-order now.
Yeah. And I think it's like, all right, cool. But then you're right. Then you click into it and it's just like every single time I'm trying to get a PlayStation Plus game, it never makes sense to me. And I'm like, and then it turns into me searching for exactly what I want.
And if you're on the PlayStation 4, it's F, and then you got to go A, and then you got to go, all right, down to N, and then you got to go,
man. There's just so many options there, and that's where I think the crap argument really gets in the way.
Yeah, there's clutter. I think it's better on PS. I mean, it's not better by volume on PS4, but better in terms of searchability on PS4 than it was on PS3. It was a mess, and Vita's a mess.
Vita's the worst. Like, go to your download list.
Yeah.
It's everything's just
everywhere.
everywhere.
And the
like,
dates are all wrong. I'm like, they definitely didn't download all 100 of these in one day. Yeah, like I don't know what they're thinking with a lot of that kind of stuff. But I feel like there's a solution to this particular problem that at least I'm raising in amongst these litany of other legitimate issues, which is I really do feel like these companies need to hire a board of people that literally play these games and they're submitted for certification, and certification shouldn't begin and start as does the game work and is the trademark logo proper, and did you replace the A button with the X button and or whatever. Although that didn't happen in Tales of Borderlands, which is fucking hilarious. And rather and my mind is like have 12 people with that you hire. You have to like really go out and find these people. This is my like kind of harebrained solution, but
this is the Nintendo seal of quality.
Exactly. Go and find. Not that really meant everything in the world because it didn't. But
same idea.
But to that point, in the NES era, as a lot of people know, you could only publish 5 games a year on Nintendo. You had to pick and choose the games. And this was a thing that I think guys like Frank Cifaldi, I think, and some other guys talk about that. Like the NES has games that are done, that are translated, that are finished, and because the publishers, and there's actually a lot of them, and because the publishers could not publish more than 5 games a year, and some of them didn't have like these shell companies like Konami did with Ultra, where they could get away with 10 games. They just sat on a shelf. Final Fantasy II, for instance, the real Final Fantasy II on the NES is done, translated, finished. It was even at CES, and they never released it. You know, like they just never fucking released the game. You find these things over and over again. For all these reasons that Nintendo was looking at what the Atari experience from 81, 82, 83, where they're like, this fell apart because there was no there was no quality control. No one gave a fuck. People were just shitting it. Quaker Oats was making games. Like everyone was making games. And that's like, we're kind of seeing a similar thing now where like, that's not good for the market because people then don't trust quality. And what I've noticed is the segue of, with the fall of THQ and all these kinds of things where we had kind of like A games, I think you still have your A publisher and something like Deep Silver. But if you really think about it, there's not that many retail games that are like just bad.
Oh, no.
Anymore. There used to be like bad retail games that were coming out.
Mm-hmm. Now the Explorer goes to Mars.
Now there's like you really have to think about it to even think about something that's like lower than a Metacritic of 5 or 6 that comes out of retail at $60, because there seems to be some thought going in there, because everyone's now going and being like, well, we don't have to spend money on retail and everything's digital anyway, so we can go to PSN and release games at a cheaper price point that are shittier. And so my solution is to say like hire 12 people, like literally a dozen, that know games, that have varied expertise in games, and during the certification process at the technical level, have these people just sit down and watch, or sit down and look at the game and exchange notes on these games. They don't even have to play them for that long. But the question shouldn't be like, do you like it? Because like if someone was like, "Do you like this racing game?" I'd be like, "No, I don't like this racing."
But you can
game.
recognize the quality
yeah,
of it.
exactly. But be like, "I'm a gaming expert, and yeah, like this passes the smell test. Like someone's gonna like this. This has this level of quality." And I bet you, if and my thing is like 9 out of 12 would have to vote yes. That's it. And then a game goes, you know. And if it falls below that, you fucking kick the game back, and you're like, "This we are experts." Feel like this game doesn't belong on the PlayStation Network because it diminishes the quality that we are striving for and buries games. Listen, if people are discovering games because their trophies are up on fucking PSN profiles or Exophase, and that's the only time you ever hear about the game, probably not worth being on the PSN. You know, probably not. If there's no blog post, probably something Sony doesn't give a fuck about. If they don't give a fuck about it, then why is it on the store? That's my whole thing.
You're talking about a perfect world and running a boutique PlayStation that doesn't exist, right? You have to imagine that if whoever's plate this would fall on at Sony, right? I would imagine the counter argument to this is the fact that, well, we don't care because we're still making games or money off the good games that are coming out. We don't care because the shitty games are still paying licensing fees to get onto PlayStation 4. And the board that is telling you if a game's good or bad falls on the shoulders of an IGN, a GameSpot, a Vita Lounge, if you want to get granular with it, right? The fact is, I think that they're walking the line where, you remember when mobile was taking off and so many Pocket Gamer and all these different sites did pop up that were going to talk about and review mobile games, and then when the water came over the sides of the ship and there was just too much, it became that they're going to champion certain games and you'll know about them that way, your Monument Valleys or something that'll pop up that way. I feel like you're not there yet with where we are now, and it's actually still to the other thing where it's like, I've never heard of that game, so I will ignore it. You know what I mean? Like, we read through everything on the blog, every PlayStation or PS I Love You XOXO, and it's like, us mentioning Rocket or whatever and joking around about it doesn't sell it. It lets you know that it's there, and maybe somebody looks into it, and then maybe we're wrong, and maybe that one does come out and we talk about it in a couple weeks like, oh, I remember that coming out. But it's like, it's the same thing, right? Where we ran through this giant list, and I always forget it. What is that horror? I just bought the horror game myself last night for this plane ride.
Claire.
I want to say Catherine every time. Claire was there, and we're like, we've heard about this. Da, da, da. Oh, Bears Can't Drift. We did a Let's Play. That game's really fun. Da, da, da. And like, you go through the list, and you are already, from us being influencers or tastemakers or whatever, seeing stuff that the developer believed enough in that the developer of Bears Can't Drift, right, is a fan of Kind of Funny and reached out to us to do the Let's Play, to tell us we got the platinum in there and make sure we got codes today, and we have a whole bunch of codes to give. Like, okay, cool. He believes in his product, and he's out there doing this, and he's gone to an audience that's, or somebody who has an audience that specializes in a certain thing. So there still are there, and then when you and I go through a PlayStation blog, we're like, what the fuck is this game that isn't even translated correctly, and this description makes no sense? You'd think that even there, we're doing the job of the panel in saying to somebody that, like, well, clearly these people don't care about their thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I just disagree in the sense that I think this has to start at the top. There's just a lot of evidence, historical evidence, that this hurts markets, right? Like, and this doesn't only hurt gaming markets. This hurts all markets. If there's an influx of shit and there can be no trust in quality, then like, what is an example of that not hurting a market? Like what, like, and what is that like? The cream rises to the top, I guess. But if there's so much fucking garbage in there, then like, what does it really matter if there's some sort of caliber of like low key or like influencer like control of quality when it's not coming from the people that are putting the games out? It's a huge problem. That was the reason Atari got destroyed. That's the reason why Steam is becoming like kind of a bigger shit pile as time goes on, even though it's a really novel idea and a way to proliferate games. And that's the reason why iOS and Android have significant top to bottom issues, you know, because to your point, it relies not on anything other than like they have those people at Apple, you know, like that aren't controlling the quality of the games that come out, but actually have curators that are like, well, this game's good. And so can you make the case that that should be done on PSN or Xbox Live perhaps? But my argument would be if you have shit like 50% of your shit no one cares about, I would go so far as to like not only have this panel at Sony, but be like, we're going through all of these games now, and like we're removing some of this shit. Like we care. It would be such a fucking PR coup for them to be like, we're putting the brakes on this. Like we have too many games, and like we understand why some of you look at indie games with ire, because for all the Shovel Knights and Gone Homes and all this kind of stuff, we have all this garbage. And that sucks, and that hurts everybody.
Here's why I think it wouldn't be a PR coup, right? And I think it's a great headline, don't get me wrong. It'd be really cool, it'd be different, everybody would talk about it. I think we're doing that thing we do all the time where we're speaking for our lives, how we consume games. I would venture to say that the majority of PlayStation gamers, and I'm talking about people who own PlayStations, don't care that much about the PSN and don't buy that much on the PSN, right? Whenever we talk about digital and this, that, the other, kids hit us up all the time that they only buy stuff in the store and they only do this.
Right, but doesn't that make the case? Like, doesn't that make the case to say, like, we're showcasing... Everything's digital now on PS4, so every game that you buy retail. Like, that's not the case on PS3, but that's the case on Vita. And that's the case on PS4. Wouldn't that make the case to be like, we believe in this platform and we have to scrub this shit out? Like there's just games that are objectively fucking terrible on this platform, and it hurts. Like, and this, I would fucking love to see some of the numbers these games sell. Like, and you have to, they're paying a 30% licensing fee to get a game that sold 5,000 copies. So Sony made $15,000.
But I think it's a quantity game at that point.
Yeah, it adds up all the shit games, right?
But it is the same thing on the mobile side, where it's just like there is all that crap, but that crap is just making money. And so it's like them curating and focusing on the good stuff, I think, is them being like, this is what we care about. That other stuff's there because it makes money, because it's a business, you know?
No, I understand.
In terms of the different markets and stuff, I think music is a good way to look at it, right? iTunes comes out, and it's just a storefront that has... It started a bit more boutique, then it has everything. Good, bad, it doesn't matter. But in order to get there, you had to, back in the day, be on a real label or whatever. As things progress, we literally have a song on iTunes. That's how easy it is, you know? Yeah. And that's where a lot of the things come into play of just like the stolen assets and this and that. There is a quality control thing you got to go through that's saying like, do you own all this? Do you whatever? It's like, yeah, but that's so easy to just click next.
How would you not know, right?
Yeah. And so it's like, I think that it's impossible on that level to have quality control for everything because there is so much. Gaming is a little bit different because there's not billions of games. But I think that we just are in a different market now where the entry level to do things is much lower. Anybody can do things. And so it's like you see all these smaller indie games. And I think that in order to allow the good ones to be made, the bad ones need to be made too. And I think that they need to be able to get into this place in a way. And I think that allowing all of it in is easier than if there was such hard limits to even like get in the door. I think that would cause a lot of problems. We wouldn't see a lot of the Shovel Knights and stuff like that unless they are. I mean, like Shovel Knight's probably not a good example because of how high profile that developer was due to how the game was made. Yeah. But when you're looking at a lot of other things, like I don't know the story of Overcooked, like who made that and how, and you know, like I think that games like that might not make it on because they wouldn't even be welcome to the door.
That's the thing is,
yeah, no, that makes sense. You're making a compelling argument, but I would still say that literally this board would see in 2 minutes that Overcooked's awesome.
Sure, but the concern would be the chilling effect of it, right? Where it's like, sure, there's a lot of shit games right now, right? But like you figure... this is another numbers game that we don't know the percentage on. A lot of shit games out there, right? But it's getting people to make stuff on the PlayStation 4. It's keeping up with the Joneses. It's giving PlayStation a foothold of not to be ignored by the Steam or iOS developer, right? Into an Overcooked, sure, there are games that you could see that are like, great, this game looks really good. We'd like to have it on here, but we have the 12 games for this month, and we're almost to the 12 games for next month, and you know what I mean? Where it would be like they're getting pushed around a bit by what Sony's scheduling would be, and then they're like, well, fuck you. We'll just put it on Steam and Xbox One or something. Granted, I'm with you that like a boutique system would be cool. Somebody stand up and be like, we only want the best would be cool. But I feel like that's like almost an Elon Musk kind of move of like, we're going to be different and we're going to be smaller and this is what it's going to be. Whereas like it's run away with PlayStation, Xbox.
Yeah. I mean, you guys make interesting and compelling arguments. I think the fundamental core is what Tim was saying was, would in 10 years more money be made if people like for instance, $15,000, right? Like gross revenue turns into after your taxes, you know, at a corporation, $8,000, whatever. Like that, it pays the salary of a person working at Sony for a couple months or something like that, let's say. And I'm wondering like if you just get rid of this, like it is the argument we used to have about mobile gaming back at IGN when we would discuss it, which is like if you cut down like the bottom 50%, how much revenue do you really lose, right? Mm-hmm. Like we don't know the numbers. That's the big thing is like that's the peak behind the curtain we don't have. I do think that there could be a chilling effect, but I also think there could be a boldness of being like our game is good enough. Like you could even go as far as to say like make your dev kits free. You know, like we'll give you a dev kit and then send us your shit and better be fucking good. You know, like, and so I understand what you're saying, and I think you're right to an extent, but I still feel like I think we are going to be very disappointed with what PSN looks like in 5 years. Like that's all I'm saying. And if I was a developer, then that's the fucking chilling effect.
For the record, I've been disappointed with the PSN looks like since it's launched, so I'm used to it.
And I mean, but see, going back to what I was saying.
Really, I think PSN has great games on it.
No, I mean like
It
the
does
interface and like
and all that
its stability and a million other problems.
But with the PSN, like I said earlier, I think it does a great job of presenting what it wants to tell me. I do think that there is a curation going on, telling me about the actually awesome games. They don't really talk about all the other stuff because they're just kind of there, whatever, making money in the background. And I think it's the same thing on the mobile side. Like the reason whenever we talk about the mobile stuff that I get so defensive about it is because I just don't care about all this shit. I don't even worry about that. Apple does a really good job of telling me what games I should be paying attention to when I'm at an airport and just I'm like, I want to try something new before I get on the plane and download something. It's been very rare that I've downloaded something on their games you should check out chart or whatever and been like, oh, this sucks. Like that is their answer to the board where I'm playing games and there's been times I'm like, not for me, but I get who this is for. And looking at my thing like Jetpack Joyride, Peggle, Tower of the Mask, Kingdom Rush, Pac-Man 256, like all the Go games, like they're great games there. My enjoyment of those games has nothing to do with all the shit, and I can not even care about it. And I feel like I don't go to the App Store ever and look at the crap, They're very clearly, it's like they're telling me what I am actually supposed to care about. There's a bunch of idiots playing the dumb shit. There's a bunch of idiots paying a lot of money for the dumb shit, And I think PSN's similar.
And a good thing about it, back to us being the tastemaker or whoever being the tastemaker, right, is the fact that our community in the industry and the fan side of it, right, the enthusiast side of it, is so much different than the mobile market and so much different than what the Atari market was, right, where you didn't have a way to instantaneously communicate. And like here, where the fuck would you go? I don't even know. I'm not a mobile gamer, of course, but I don't think there's a lot of mobile gamers beating down these mobile game websites to find out what the hotness is, right? But with us, right, I can talk about Taco Master and make Taco Master chart, not as a joke because it's really a fun, easy platinum. And I say that. And then not only do I say it, our fans who run their podcast say that, and then people play, you know what I mean? Like it spirals out enough in this community where you can make waves like that and actually do that.
But I mean,
curation.
That's how I found Tower of the Mask, and it's people on Twitter that I respect saying this is fun. So I was like, all right, cool, I'll check it out. And I think that and I've talked about it, and so many people have tweeted at me saying, dude, I fucking love this
This is
game.
the first time I ever heard you talk about this game.
I talked about it before.
You're a
trying to pitch
liar.
him on it.
What's the pitch me on it? What's it?
The Tower of the Mask, it's like, it's a rising endless runner essentially, where you're just kind of bumping up, you're collecting coins along the way, and it's a 2D platformer kind of, but there's no jump. It is all just swipes like make you go. It's kind of like the opposite of the game you like Downwell, because you're just going up this tower and like collecting this bunch of power and stuff.
No,
it's a lot of fun and it's addicting and it's rewarding in a fun way. But again, it's not like the deepest experience ever, but it's a fun game to play on an airplane.
Sure. I play fun games on Vita on the airplane.
It's a good conversation.
I like trophies.
Yeah.
Hate bubbles.
All right.